Hi, this is Mr. Evans. This video looks at the divorce of ownership and control, and we'll be looking at the effects of the divorce of ownership and control and corporate governance as well. So the divorce of ownership and control occurs when the owners of the company aren't involved in its day-to-day running, which would typically occur in public limited companies. So let's take a very simple example. Let's say a business was started by a sole trader, and that business does rather well, and our sole trader wants to grow the business but doesn't have the funds to do so. A very common situation, in which case one option for raising funds is to ask shareholders to invest some money. Now, those shareholders may well not have the time to be involved in the business day to day, but they just want to put some money in the hope of earning some returns. So they appoint a board of directors, managers, to run the business for them. And as the business grows, more and more layers are added to the hierarchy, more and more levels of management, to run the business on behalf of the owners. So here's another simple way of looking at it. We've got our shareholders, who are called principals, who employ managers and or agents on their behalf in order to run the company for them. But this leads to what is sometimes called the principal agent problem. So what is the principal agent problem? Well, shareholders, you may think that you don't have any shares, but if you're living in the UK, very often your parents will have a pension, and they will be paying money every month into a pension fund, and that pension fund doesn't just sit there waiting for your parents to retire. The pension funds themselves, the managers of those pension funds, look for businesses to invest in. They invest money on the stock market. They buy the shares of businesses. Now then, there's nothing wrong with that, and it's a very effective way for pensions to enable them to pay for people's retirement when it comes round. But problem is that these shareholders, and there could be millions of them, remember, often they're only interested in short-term returns, i.e. what's the dividend we're going to get this year. And the managers of these huge pension funds will put pressure on the board of directors to deliver huge dividends. And obviously, if the company is paying out huge dividends, a share of the profits, that's profit that isn't being reinvested in the growth of the company. It's quite a short-termist view. These shareholders may not be interested in the impact on other stakeholders. So they, I'm interested in, I've got my pension, it's really important to me. I'm not too worried about how, what the strategy that this business is following is going to affect the employees or the customers. Whereas actually, if we were taking more of a long-term view, this might be more relevant. These shareholders often don't have the expertise, experience, or time to oversee the running of the business. Most of the time, they won't even know what shares, what companies their money has been invested in. It's done by these huge pension funds or investment funds who are paid to, oversee them on other people's behalf. So people don't have the expertise or time to oversee the running of the business, and also the shareholders might also only receive limited information about the day-to-day running of the business. They might only get an annual report every year, which is the written report they have to write. They might attend the annual general meeting, which occurs annually, once a year. So, we're asking these shareholders to put their money into the company. They want their returns, but they are also, to a certain degree, meant to oversee the company so that it is running correctly, but often they don't have the time or resources to do that. Finally, and what this might lead to is managers actually making decisions that benefit them rather than the organisation and other stakeholders. So you could look up Fred Goodwin at his time in RBS as a manager who made some very poor decisions. In the Financial Times, there is a story here about one area. So this is about the collapse of Carillion, big business that collapsed early in 2018. One area where improvements are crucial is board accountability. The UK Corporate Governance Code needs to be toughened up to force company directors to demonstrate greater transparency over how they're acting in the interest of all stakeholders. So company directors are the people who are running it. It is also far too difficult to take action against the minority of businesses who fail in their duties. We essentially pay boards to oversee our investments. The majority of directors perform this task admirably. We simply want those high standards in company stewardship to be consistently applied. So what the guy here is saying is that there wasn't enough oversight from the board of directors into Carillion, and as a result, that was one of the reasons potentially why it shut down. And that taps into this idea of corporate governance. So it refers to the rules and monitoring systems that are in place to protect the owners and other stakeholders in a business. Corporate governance includes the role of shareholders in holding the managers accountable for their decisions. So at the annual general meeting, where shareholders can vote for who they want to be on the board of directors. It includes the annual reports that organisations issue. So corporate governance, they have to, in the annual report, there's legal things about what the company has to explain is going on. And the role of shareholders should be to look over that and ensure that the board are delivering their promises, basically. And finally, the role of non-executive directors. So a non-executive director is kind of a part-time director. The idea of the non-executive director is they're often kind of highly experienced people, maybe who have semi-retired, and their role is to sit on the board and make sure that the board is acting in the best interests of shareholders. So corporate governance is a big area of growth and interest. You'll often hear about it on the radio. It refers to the systems and rules that are put in place to protect the owners and other stakeholders in a business. And unfortunately, corporate governance does sometimes go wrong when there is not enough oversight from shareholders about what managers are doing.